Alright, let's do a tier list on the current Master Duel meta, which admittedly, this is kind of late into the format. I know, but we did have a ban list announcement recently, which is going to completely change the meta, right? But yeah, in all seriousness, I will say that because the meta has had a lot of time to develop before I'm doing this tier list, hopefully this tier list will be more accurate than most that you see on YouTube, including my own. So yeah, let's just hop right in now. So the deck that we have to talk about first is Vanquish K9. It's like the by far the most hyped new deck, and like the out of like all of the new decks, this is the best one, the main meta relevant one. And yeah, a lot of people were worried that this might be a tier 0 deck, or that this was like super oppressive and that pretty much nobody is playing any other deck but Vanquish K9. That's not the case. That's absolutely not the case. In fact, so I'm gonna put Vanquish K9 in tier 1, like unsurprisingly, but you might be surprised by its placement within tier 1 once we get to some more decks down the line. So Vanquish K9, in theory, right, this is the best deck. If you just talk about its positives, it has the best turn 0 plays because, it has both Izuna and Holly Sue, so, basically the best hand traps in the game. And, it has a very comprehensive, engine where if this deck gets to play, it's pretty much unstoppable. You can't do anything to it. Like, you won't be able to hand trap it. There's very few hand traps that are effective against this. This deck shrugs off most hand traps like they're nothing. You pretty much need to resolve a floodgate hand trap like Maxi or Droll or Fulos or like Perulia, and like even then, that doesn't stop them completely most of the time. It will just slow them down. If they have a good enough hand, they can still accumulate like stuff in their hand and just like hold Vanquish names in their hand and still play most of their stuff on your turn. So yeah, you would think that this would be by far the best deck. However, there is one glaring issue with Vanquish K9 that a lot of people have realized after playing the deck for a few weeks now, and it's that this deck, a lot of times this deck will lose to itself. In fact, you could say that this deck almost loses to itself as much as it loses to like your opponent, just because like when this deck gets going, it feels unstoppable, but frequently this deck will just not be able to get going at all because it does have quite a few cards semi-limited randomly, which admittedly when you move up to like 4 different cards that are semi-limited, it actually does affect your consistency quite a bit. Not to mention, a lot of your key plays are not 1-card combos. They require like 2-card combos or like 1.5 card combos, and require you to have proper attributes in hand as well. And like somebody crunched the math, and this deck has around like the standard build has around like a high 80% consistency rate, like an 87% consistency rate in order to have a play at all, which is 87% does sound high, but compared to other decks in this meta, as like some of the other top decks, which like such as Yummy or Draco, which we'll definitely get to, 87% is actually pretty low in terms of consistency, because other decks will have a 15 plus 1-card starters and will have a consistency rate above 90% in order to see a play, whereas Vanquish K9 does not have that. And all my Asian viewers will know that the difference between a high 80% and a low to mid 90% is literally life and death. And again, when this deck opens good, it feels like it can play through 3 to 4 hand traps, but when it opens bad, it gets stopped by 1 hand trap, and then the rest of your hand also doesn't do jack shit because you probably have like a bunch of VS names in hand that don't do anything because you have the wrong attributes and you don't have the good Vanquish names. And it's not like you run a lot of hand traps compared to other decks because you have to run so much engine in order to maintain consistency. So when you have a bad hand and you get stopped by 1 hand trap, you just have a bunch of cards in hand that you can't even use to defend yourself. At least like not even like real hand traps compared to the other top decks in this format that we'll get to later on. So this deck, because there's such a wide range on hand quality in this deck, and there's such high variance with Vanquish K9, that a lot of top players have been struggling to do well consistently with this deck, to the point where it is actually among the top rate decks in rated. Vanquish is not among the the most played decks up there. It may feel like it's you know, on normal ladder or like in like master ranked or below, it may feel like Vanquish Soul K9s everywhere because of sheer play rate. But once you get to like the higher ratings where, you know, winning consistently matters more, then this deck actually saw a fair bit of drop off during the month. So we'll keep it at tier 1, but you know, if it's any spoilers, it's probably not going to be the best deck on this tier list, which, you know, is not something I expected when Vanquish Soul K9 was released into this game. But yeah. And then speaking of new cards released into the game, Dark Magician, sound the alarms. Dark Magician is a rogue level playable deck for the first time in over a decade, because they printed one of the most custom Dark Magician support cards you've ever seen, Dark Magician of Destruction, which is basically a card that searches every single card in your deck that you can summon by banishing any level 6 or higher Dark Spellcaster monster. So, yeah, that's all it took. A card that you can shit out of basically nowhere by, you know, just using any of your Dark Magician monsters or Dark Magician adjacent monsters. And then, yeah, you can shit out Dragoons. And, like, it's to the point where if you don't hand trap Dark Magician, you're actually probably going to lose, because you're going to be facing upwards of, like, 3+ Omni Negates. 2 of them probably being Dragoon, which you can't destroy or target, and they gain attack. So, like, good luck trying to out 2 Dragoons while dealing with 3 Omni Negates. That's like we're on like Lunar Knight levels of double Lycra Dancer levels of tough to out. And yeah, this deck, it has playable cards now. Well, I mean, look, I'm gonna not sugarcoat it. The previous Dark Magician cards, like the reason why Dark Magician decks were like so ass before was because all of the Dark Magician cards, all the old Dark Magician cards are so outdated and like so terrible. Eternal Soul, Dark Magical Circle, it's not even a guaranteed search. I mean, like Dark Rod, a normal summon that wasn't even a full combo by itself. Like, imagine having your main normal summon not doing a full combo in your deck in like the 2020s. Like that is gross. So yeah, with the addition of Dark Magician of Destruction, and now the fact that you can use any generic dark level, any generic level 6 or higher Dark Spellcaster. It doesn't have to be Dark Magician, by the way. So you can run better engines in your deck that aren't fucking Dark Magician cards. In fact, I tried playing Dark Magician, and I soon realized that I could remove all of the bad Dark Magician cards. I'm sorry, you know, all my Yugi boomers, but like the old Dark Magician cards were not it. I took out like the fucking Eternal Souls, the Dark Magical Circles, most of those, I'm sorry. We've put in cards like Primites, which now Primite Roar is full. One Primite Roar is now full Dark Magician combo, multiple Dragoons. One Shining Sark card, you know, the Shining Sark cards are also now full Dark Magician combo. And all of them demand your opponent to hand trap them, otherwise you will get multiple Dragoons in your face. Like, you will be gooning pretty hard, or your opponent will be gooning pretty hard in your face, and you probably don't want that happening. So, yeah, I will say is that the deck still has weaknesses. Like, obviously, it's Dark Magician. Like, there's some, it's weak to some notable hand traps, such as Droll and Lockbird, because the deck still requires to search quite a bit of cards, and every time you pretty much anytime before you make Dark Magician of Destruction, you will probably search a card before that, so like you're liable to just not be able to, like, you're searching like 3 to 4+ times ideally in return, and one Droll obviously hurts quite a bit. But you know, Fool Loss, this deck is actually pretty decent to Fool Loss, because of Gaze of Demise. You can literally just set it and then summon a Dragoon on your opponent's turn and give your opponent 1 less draw for the Omni Negate. Like, this deck has some stuff now. It's playable, and like, this isn't all its support. It's gonna get more support later with the overframe cards, but like we'll discuss those when we actually get an announcement of them actually coming to Master Duel. But yeah, I was actually thoroughly impressed. This is maybe one of the single deck that Dark Magician might be the single deck this format that rose the most amount of tiers, because before this support, this shit was like 5 tiers below the top left, the bottom tier in this tier list. But now it's actually like, this is a respectable deck that you can get the Master 1 with. And like, not that there are much worse decks in this list actually. And yeah, so I know there's also a thing about the Dark Magician support is that it's not exclusive to Dark Magician. There are other decks that use the Dark Magician support, and there are other decks that can use the Shiny Sarcophagus cards. In fact, technically every deck can use the Shiny Sarcophagus cards, but I'm gonna go over the main decks that can use the Dark Magician support the best, because technically any deck can play the Shiny Sarcophagus cards, but like it doesn't make sense to go over literally every single deck in the game, because like that doesn't really say much. So later on in this tier list, we'll go over decks that can also use the Dark Magician support to make use of Dragoon for themselves too. But yeah. Next we have Live Twins, so or Evil Twins, or whatever you want to say it. Like this was a support long time coming. I don't know why it took them so long. We should have gotten this Live Twin support like months upon months ago before we got the Justice Hunter. The fact that we got both Draco Tail and Yummy before the Evil Twin support is actually criminal. Yeah, so we got the Link 1, and basically it means that this deck, it solves two problems. One is that this deck is now almost impossible to hand trap if you start with a Kisakil because of the Link 1. Like if you hand trap the Kisakil normal summon, you just make the Link 1, you bend the Lilla, and then you go into Requiem, then you do Fiendsman stuff, and then like so on and so forth. Yeah, people that say that this deck loses to Bell and that this deck loses to Nibiru and this deck loses to Ash, I'm sorry if you think this deck loses to any of those hand traps individually. That's a skill issue. You're playing the deck wrong. This deck has one card combos that play through every single one of those cards, and this is a Fiendswift deck, so it can make Caesar, and Caesar is honestly, by this point, Caesar is like one of the best end war pieces in the entire game, because pretty much every single deck has multiple effects to special summon. So basically against any meta deck, Caesar just reads as 2 negates, which is insane, because most end board monsters are only like 1 negate usually, but Caesar is 2 negates against most decks, which is like kind of crazy. And yeah, the other problem to fix is that you can now combo while you control a monster. Like before, it was very funny how if you had any monster on board, including stuff like Bishios, including stuff like Nibiru's or Nibiru tokens, or like anything, you just couldn't do your Life Twin combo because your Life Twin monsters couldn't summon the other Life Twin from deck. But now that doesn't matter, because as long as you have the pink one, the Kisakil, you can just link it off into the Link 1, and the Link 1 will send the other one. It will send the blue Lilla, and then you still get access to both names, and you can still do your full combo even with a monster on board. So yeah, that was very nice. That being said, this deck is still, obviously this deck it feels a little power crept, because in paper and in a TCG and OCG, this deck came out much sooner than it did in Master Duel, so it feels a little underwhelming when you compare it to, you know, Vanquish K9 and like Yummy and Draco Tail. But I'll put it here because going first, this deck is provided you don't get Fool Lost. This deck is like very strong going first. Like it's actually pretty hard to stop. This deck runs a ton of hand traps. It is bad going second. Like don't get me wrong, this deck will not be able to play into a board, but this deck runs like the most hand traps in the game. So like at the very least, if you suck into a board, being able to run hand traps, being able to run more hand traps than any other deck, at least it's something to help make up for that. But yeah, next we have a Dragon Link, or like this isn't really even Dragon Link anymore. It's like the Rocket support, which you can play in a normal Dragon Link package. Like you can play the Chaos Space, you can play the Red Eyes package, or you can just play pure Rocket. And yeah, I will say the thing about Rockets is that this meta is absolutely terrible for Rockets. This is one of the worst metas probably for Rockets that you can think of. Like if you were to like design a terrible format specifically to counter Rockets and specifically to counter Dragon Link, it would be this one, because this one where the top decks are like Vanquish K9, and you know, as you can see here, there's quite a few Yummy variants, there's quite a few Draco Tail variants in here. This Rockets is terrible against all 3 Justice Hunter decks, all 3 of Vanquish K9, Yummy, and Draco Tail, going first and going second, frankly, because even going first, this deck number 1 loses to all of the popular Floodgate hand traps. Like it loses to Droll, it loses to Maxi, obviously. It also loses to it loses the Fuwa, Maxi, and Droll. So the big 3, those cards are in majority of decks, and if you get hit by any single one of them, it's devastating. Perulia is seeing more play now because of Vanquish K9, and Perulia is also bad news because Perulia is like 4 draws if you want to do your full combo with rockets. Also, the turn 0 plays are, you can't beat, like 5 mana is it's terrible. Like literally every single fusion that 5 mana can go into, I think beats rockets in some way. Like they could literally just shotgun 5 mana, pick a random fusion monster, and it will beat rockets. Like you can pick a Secretariat Dragon to floodgate you. You can play build up. You can choose Arphalion to just bounce your normal summon, and then when you get bounced, like getting your normal summon removed hurts a ton because you can't link it off into Striker Dragon, and you can't get the boots at your launch. You can pick Gulamel and just pop your normal summon, so like that sucks. Don't even get me started on the Vanquish K9 and the Holly Sue and the Izuna stuff, because Holly Sue stealing your dragon monster so you can't link it off sucks. Your deck triggers K9 cards. It plays into Izuna because you have a lot of effects that activate in the grave, which is unfortunately you will have to deal with Izunas. You will have to deal with them going into Suckmaster, not 3000, aka Nash Knight, and then just stealing your material. Like it's really bad. Like it's also Bystials. This deck would benefit a lot if Bystials were playable, but Bystials are really bad. They are really bad hand trap into most of the top decks. So, boy, if you ask me at any point would I put Dark Magician over Rocket Dragon Link, I wouldn't have. I would have dreaded the day I would have to do this, but yeah, I cannot justify putting Rockets any higher than Rogue, and I can't even justify putting higher than Dark Magician. Like, yeah, what has the world come to? Boros Shell Dragon, like, yeah, if you do your combo and you do end up like doing your full combo, like you will probably win. But I mean, the likelihood of that happening is just not high. Playing the boards is not great. Not to mention, like, you don't have room for as many hand traps as Live Twin does. Not even close. You do have, like, arguably better hand traps. Like if you want to play Impulse, you can play Impulse. But again, quantity over quality in this format. And also Typhon, like all of your monsters are so huge that if you don't end with a Seals on board, you are very vulnerable to Typhon. Like literally a Lupus summoning itself and then threatening to make Typhon is one of the most annoying things in the world, because that shuts off like your entire board. And then if they make it on your turn, it could pass it back to them. They're not locked under Typhon, so they floodgated your board while not being floodgated themselves out of summoning because they summoned it last turn. Like it's just, there's so many things that are going around against dragons this format. Just ask Krish. He will say all the same things that I just said. Yeah. So speaking of bad metas, Junk or Synchron or whatever the hell. If you're wondering what this card is, this is the cover card for the new selection pack, the Strike of Justice. You've probably never seen this in game, because most junk decks don't play this, because even in junk decks, this card is junk. This is the Junk Warrior Extremes thing, which after you summon it, you can only special summon one more time. So like imagine self-floodgating yourself in a Synchro deck. This is, yeah. So number one, don't play this Junk Warrior Extreme suck ass card in Junks and Synchron. And all of the problems I mentioned for dragons and like rockets, that applies to Synchron pretty much as well. It's weak to most of the floodgate hand traps. Fua, Maxi, all that stuff is it's not good, and it doesn't even have the ability to run Dominus Impulse because it's mismatching. It has stuff that's like mismatching attributes. It has for all intents and purposes, the new support is good. It adds more starters, it adds more extension to the deck, but it doesn't solve the main problem with the deck. Which is the main problem with this deck is that it still sucks ass going second. It still has to run a ton of bricks. It still is terrible into all of the support doesn't make it any better into the hand traps it's weak to, which are the floodgate ones. And yeah, it's like resolve junk speeder are good, but like the hard part is like resolving the junk speeder or even getting to the junk speeder in the first place. And yeah, it's next. Let's go over some other K9 decks besides just Vanquish Souls. And technically, much like the Shining Sarcophagus and the Dark Magician cards, you can technically play K9 cards in every deck as just like as minimum as a cantrip engine, like with 3 Izuna and Lupus just to make a rank 5 on your opponent's turn. But like, I'm talking about the actual decks that actually play the whole K9 package, like the normal summons, like the Noroys and the Jokels and the an extended rank 5 package in the extra deck. And these are the most common other ways to play K9 than Vanquish Soul, than Vanquish Soul. So one of them is Archmage K9, which thank you very much for putting everyone on this deck, this encoder. I think I have a 0% win rate against Archmage K9 because I don't think I've won a single coin flip against this deck. And when you lose a coin flip against a K9 deck, you know it's all bad because Ripper go burn, negate all your hand traps. And the reason why Archmage in particular has synergy with K9 is because K9 is a normal summon engine, or it has a lot of normal summons like Noroi, which is like why a lot of decks can't properly utilize a full extended K9 engine, because it most of them do require you to use a normal summon at some point for Noroi. But in Archmage, you have a card that lets you, I think the field spell basically lets you gives you an additional normal summon on your main monster, which is Medius Deputer. So you don't, because you have an additional normal summon, you can use your additional normal summon on your K9 cards so that it doesn't conflict, even though you have 2 different normal summons in the deck. Like you can do full K9 end board, full K9 engine plus full Archmage end board together, because you can just do that. And then the K9 stuff also fixes like some problems with Archmage, namely the problem with Nibiru, because before Nibiru there was like there wasn't really a way to play around Nibiru very well with Archmage, besides quote-unquote Nibiruing yourself, like making an end board so weak that it's almost like you basically just self-Nibirued yourself. That's how weak your end board is compared to what it could be if you didn't respect Nibiru. But because you have K9 cards just laugh in the face of Nibiru. Like you have Ripper just negate the Nibiru, easy solution there, no problem. So now you can go commit to your full Archmage end board. It doesn't help with the problem with Droll or like Fua, but like, I mean, Fua and Maxi weren't as much of a problem for Archmage before. So if you do get Fua and Maxi, you can just fall back on your original Archmage plan to play around those cards. But Droll, like obviously, like you're not gonna beat Droll if you're playing K9 cards, but like it's not a perfect deck, okay? Like Archmage K9, it's not a tier 1 deck, okay? It's still like I'll put it here. It's a tier 3 deck. It is still an Archmage deck, but it is also a K9 deck, and K9 cards are very strong. So yeah. Next we have the Clankers, the Smigers in Paris, the Crystron K9, which is probably maybe the K9 deck with the highest ceiling, like a higher ceiling than even Vanquish Soul K9 and Archmage K9. You can even, if you want, you can even end on a Spellcaster and like end on an additional Floodgate. Not that you need it, because your end board already has a ton of Omni Gates. Like you have the full Crystron end board with like Cyber Dragon Infinity plus the Crystron Cluster Trap plus the quick synchro and like all that stuff. Plus the K9 stuff, and you run a bunch of rank. You have a couple level 5 Crystron monsters. That's why it works with the K9 cards. Like there's synergy with the level 5 Crystron monsters and the level 5 K9 monsters. And the downside of Crystron K9 compared to like say Vanquish Soul K9, it's obviously it's a lot worse going second, because Vanquish Soul K9 has Holly Sue and Crystron K9 does not have Holly Sue. So that's kind of a reason why it's worse going second. Admittedly, so you exchange your going second power for like a slightly better end board, which admittedly is probably not worth it for most people. It does play slightly better around Droll as well, and slightly better around cards like Perulia, like the cards that people side in, like what this is Master, what's the best one. The cards that people play specifically to hit Vanquish Soul K9 are a bit less effective against Crystron K9, such as Perulia, such as okay, I guess Perulia is still actually pretty decent. It's not as good as against Vanquish Soul, but it's still okay against the Crystron engine too. But Droll is a lot less effective because the Crystron cards are just way better at playing through Droll than the Vanquish cards are. And yeah, because you do have an Omni Negate. Now, some people have been trying to play stuff like Evenly Match, which I feel like Evenly Match is a bit cope, not gonna lie. But if you want to try board breakers like that, they don't really work against Crystron because Crystron has Omni Negates on this end board. So I would say like it is a solid tier 2 that like it's a very high power deck. It's just probably mostly a worse K9 variant compared to the Vanquish K9. But yeah, it is back, and also Lancia. Finally, Lancia is out of the meta. Like the bane of Crystron's existence was Malice. Malice was the bane of Crystron's existence because it made everyone play Lancia, and at any point when you play Lancia, like that spells death for the Crystron cards, but not anymore. Finally, but yeah, we will definitely get into Malice later on. But next deck I want to talk about actually before we get into the Snake Eye stuff, White Forest. So the White Forest is like, this is the #1 deck people were thinking about when to play with the Dark Magician cards, because this deck plays Diabells, and these are all 3 of these decks are like Diabellstar decks. You know, Snake Eyes variants plus White Forest variants, they both play Diabellstar, and Diabellstar basically is a free Dark Magician of Destruction, which is basically a free Dragoon. So yeah, that's right. Once again, it's the whites stealing from I'm gonna stop that joke right there before I get this video demonetized. But yeah, White Forest is probably arguably the best deck at playing the Dragoon Dark Magician package outside of Dark Magician itself. And a lot of people are wondering if that's even worth it, because the White Forest end board is already like it's basically already an FTK. Like, do you really need another Omni Negate on top of it? But having that option means that you play around hand traps even harder. Because if you just summon Diabellstar, what's your opponent going to do? They negate it. Okay, you activate any of your other spell cards in your White Forest deck that plays a ton of spell cards, and then you have a Dragoon. And then they have to negate the Dark Magician of Destruction. Because if they don't, then they're going to have to deal with a Dragoon. But if they don't negate it, or if they do negate it, then that's one less hand trap they have for the rest of your White Forest stuff. So basically, it makes this deck almost basically impossible to hand trap outside of the Floodgate ones like Droll. Even Fua and Maxi. Again, this deck is so good at playing into Fua and Maxi because it has a ton of spell and trap cards, White Forest and Sinful Spoil spell and trap cards that let you do stuff and like interrupt your opponent on their turn by summoning your Synchro monsters, like summoning Guardian Chimera or Silvera. But now there's another quick play spell to add on top of that, which is Gaze of Timaeus. So like if you try to say fool us this deck, they're gonna set fucking Woes plus Sinful Spoils of White Forest plus Gaze, and then they're gonna make 3 monsters on your turn and like go like nice Fool Laws. You got like 1-2 draws for like an Omni Negate, a Book of Eclipse, a full board Book of Eclipse plus a pop with a Guardian Chimera, like nice going. So yeah, I overall think that it's probably worth it to play the Dark Magician stuff in White Forest. Like, admittedly, it doesn't solve all of the issues with White Forest. It accentuates the strengths of White Forest in that it makes it even harder to hand trap. It doesn't really solve the problem with White Forest against its weakest hand trap, which is Droll. Like, Droll is still very effective against it, and Droll will also stop your opponent from getting to Dragoon in the first place, because they will usually search before adding Gaze of Timaeus. And also, it's still bad going second. Like, Dragoon, admittedly, like, Dragoon is harder to access going second when they can just remove your bodies. So yeah, it's still a tier. I would say it's still like a tier 3. Like, it's around the what I would put it before. It's maybe slightly better with the with the Dark Magician's support, but not so game breaking that it jumps up a tier or anything like that. Yeah, and then we have the Snake Eyes cards, which because people are freaking out because Poplar went back to 3, and people are worried that Snake Eyes is coming back. But like, here's the thing: I've said this in my balance video. Poplar going from 1 to 3 is probably the least consequential unhit you can have in the deck, because Poplar is not even a good card to draw. Okay, Poplar is the worst starter. Like compared to Snake Eyes Ash or Die Bellstar, the Black Witch to get original symbol spoils or symbols or like deception of symbol spoils or like other stuff. Poplar is like your worst normal summon. Okay, it's not a card you want to start with. The reason people ran multiples is not because they want a hard draw. They ran multiples because they didn't want it to be a Garnet. Because the real reason that Poplar is good in the first place is because you can add it to your hand with cards like Bonfire or Snake Eyes Ash, and then when it's added to your hand, it's a free extender. It special summons itself, and that's when it's good. When it's just in your hand, like when you just raw hard draw it, it doesn't have that benefit of being an extender. It's actually kind of a brick. And if you only ran one and you hard drew the one Poplar, then you can no longer add Poplar to your hand anymore, and then you didn't have that access to that entire line of play, which is why people ran 2. Not a lot of decks ran 3. Especially when they have access to like other starters, or like at least like outside of Pure. Like maybe Pure Snake Eyes would run 3 Poplar because it doesn't have that many starters outside of Poplar. But yeah, it is not a big deal. If anything, it may improve the consistency of the deck by a little bit, by one giving it more quote unquote starters, even though it's the worst one, and by making it brick less on like hard drawing the Poplar and like having it be a Garnet. But yeah, but other than that, this deck can technically also take advantage of the Dragoon stuff, because it does play Die Bellstar, so it does have access to a Dark Spellcaster that it can turn into Dark Magician of Destruction. Now, it doesn't use that. I don't think it uses it as well as the White Forest deck, because there's less spells in a typical Snake Eyes deck. And because of that, if you get your Black Witch negated and you don't get the set a spell, there's like a higher chance that you actually just don't have a spell to activate, so then you can't actually go into the Dark Magician of Destruction. But I guess that could be solved if you played the Fiend's Invention as well. But at that point, like that's a lot of extra deck space to play the Snake Eyes stuff and the Fiend's stuff and the Dark Magician stuff in one extra deck. Like that seems like a lot. Maybe it's doable, but I mean, it's yeah, and also comparison with the Fire King Snake Eyes. So Fire King Snake Eyes, I don't think you should play the Dark Magician stuff in Fire King Snake Eyes, even though Fire King Snake Eyes does play the Die Bellstar stuff. It's just like it's weird in that if you start with Die Bellstar and you want to end on like the Deception stuff, like the Alias Sylvia and the Mercy Log, which by the way, that's if you play the Deception engine, that's 2 more slots in the extra. That is a lot of extra commitment to play Dragoon plus the Deceptions plus the Azamina stuff plus Fiendsmith. But yeah, in Fire King Snake Eyes, if you even play the Azamina stuff, you have to deal with this weird line where you have to fucking Lamberge put the Mercy Lago in your back row so that you can pop it with like your Fire King cards to get an extra search, because you have to use one of your searches to get access to your Fire King engine in the first place. Like it's really complicated. I don't think you need to do with that convoluted line, because if you get to that point, you probably already won the game. So it's like you really need all that extra Omni Negate stuff. Like admittedly, there is an advantage to playing like the Azamina stuff and to playing the Dragoon stuff, is that this deck does play into Izuna, because Poplar does trigger from the hand. But if you have put an Omni Negate up early, then it forces out the K9 stuff. It forces out the Izuna early. Otherwise, you have an Omni Negate up. And like, yeah, if you don't play that stuff, you don't play Dragoon, then your opponent can just slow roll the Izuna and then wait for like a better time to use it, because you don't have, because they can basically use their Izuna at any time. But yeah, these are both solid decks. Fire King Snake Eyes, I will say the big advantage of playing Fire King Snake Eyes over other Snake Eyes variants is that it's way better into Fool Loss specifically. Because if normal Snake Eyes gets Fool Loss, you're doing like IP pass, or like you're doing Dragoon pass for like 1 draw, or if you want to make a Dragoon plus IP pass, that's you're giving opponent 2 draws. It's like kind of it's okay, but it's not the best in the Fool Loss. If you get Fool Loss on your Snake Eyes Ash and Fire King Snake Eyes, or like Fool Loss on your original Symbol Spells and Fire King Snake Eyes, you can still set up Promethean Princess plus Arvata with a Sanctuary on the field and like Garunix Engraved to be able to special summon itself to destroy Kieran to pop another card. It's like you get like 4 interruptions off of like 2 Fool Lost draws. You get the Princess pop, you get the Arvata, a Monster Negate, you get the pop from the Runic Summoning Kieran, and then you get another board wipe with the Sanctuary, making the Xyz Runics the Hyung, which is like you can do that under Fool Lost because you don't summon that much from deck. You pop cards and you destroy cards from deck, and then you revive them from the graveyard and you special them from hand. So like, yeah, you can bypass a lot of Fool Lost draws that way. You get, and like 4 interruptions for like 2 Fool Lost draws is actually pretty excellent. Now the flip side is that Fire King is way worse in the Droll than standard Snake Eyes, because you have to actually add cards with Fire King Island, and if you get Drolled, you can't even use Fire King Island. So like there's give or take. These are all like, these are solid decks. Snake Eyes is a solid deck, but like I put them in tier 3 before. I'm still putting them in tier 3 now because, like, frankly, if the only change for Snake Eyes is like Poplar going from 1 to 3, that is not a huge deal at all. I'm not even sure I would even play multiple Poplar in Fire Kings, because Fire King doesn't even need to go through Poplar in half its lines anyways. But yeah, arguably the Dark Magician support is a bigger deal to Snake Eyes than the actual Poplar going from 1 to 3. And yeah, next I want to discuss some Orcus variants. So like Orcus variants, this is mainly to discuss the Shiny Sarcophagus Orcus variants. So I did not like any Orcus variant that Master Duel had so far. You notice I'm not even putting pure Orcus in here because I think pure Orcus is just actually unplayable. It's like, it's so inconsistent. It has so few starters, and it's like so bad playing the board. So it loses to every turn 0 play, like Holly Sue, Izuna, Vimena, stuff like that. So I'm just not even including pure Orcus because I don't think that pure Orcus is worth playing. It was between Fiends of Orcus and Mitsu Orcus at that point. And Fiends of Orcus, it's a solid deck, very bad into Fool Lost, but hey, what can you do? Like, some decks are just bad into Fool Lost. And it also, because you're playing the Fiends and stuff, you unfortunately cannot play Dauntless Impulse, which is like, it always feels weird when a dark deck cannot play Dauntless Impulse, but unfortunately that's the Fiendsmith version. And then Mitsurugi Orcus is a very powerful deck. It can play Dauntless Impulse, but it has so many bricks in it. Like, the Orcus engine has so many bricks. The Mitsurugi engine adds more bricks. The deck has way less room for hand traps because of the engine requirements. It's just, in exchange for playing Impulse and having the stronger Mitsurugi interruptions, you're playing a deck that has, on average, opens like 2 to 3 bricks each hand, which is like not, that doesn't sound great. So this is where we enter Shining Sarcophagus Orcus, which I believe Shining Sarcophagus Orcus. So I'll put these Orcus variants here because, like, frankly, the days of Orcus being high tier 2 and tier 1 are long gone. But Shining Sarcophagus Orcus, I feel like Loki is probably the best version of Orcus to play, because the Shining Sarcophagus cards, number one, they're dark, so they don't conflict with Impulse. So unlike Fiendsmith, you can play Impulse with the Shining Sarcophagus cards. And number two, they don't really have bricks. Okay, they're basically the Shining Sarcophagus Dark Magician and the Shining Sarcophagus itself. Those are both starters for your deck. They both basically at minimum get you to 2 bodies. So they at minimum they make Mermaid, and at minimum they make full Orcus combo. They also added Dragoon to your end board. And yeah, also, like, one of the downsides of the Shining Sarcophagus engine is that usually the Shining Sarcophagus engine is pretty weak in the Droll because you have to add multiple cards to your hand usually. But Orcus is a deck that can do its full stuff under Droll. So it can mitigate the downsides of getting Drolled on your Shining Sarcophagus engine, because you can still at the very least do Orcus combo even if you get Drolled on the Shining Sarcophagus cards, because you still have the body from the Dark Magician girl, and any other body like is still full Orcus combo after that, even through a Droll. So yeah, I think these engines complement each other nicely, and also like it does still add a Dragoon onto your end board, which is not nothing. That is still a decent payoff. It's like maybe arguably slightly worse than the Fiendsmith payoff, because when you're comparing Dragoon versus Caesar, which would you rather have? Like, Caesar is maybe probably a little better against most decks than Dragoon is, but I mean, Dragoon is not bad, and it has much better synergy with Impulse, stuff like that. So I actually, straight up, if you want to play Orcus, look into the Shiny Sarcophagus cards. This might be one of the best decks at using the Shiny Sarcophagus cards straight up, and it's also probably, in my opinion, the best variant of Orcus. So next we have Sky Strikers, which low-key was probably the deck that was most affected by this quote-unquote ban list. It wasn't the biggest change was not Poplar going from 1 to 3. It was definitely not Habakiri going from 3 to 2. Like, that makes any difference at all. But no, the biggest change was probably Desires going from 1 to 3. And over the last, I would say maybe 2, even 3 years of Master Duel, possibly I feel like the only deck that played Desires that could even be considered meta, besides I guess Stun variants, was Sky Striker. Maybe there was like the odd Ryziel deck that played like a Desires or so. That wasn't very common at all. It was, or like Cashera, when I mean Cashera was never really that good anyways. But yeah, Sky Striker. Most Sky Striker lists did play the one of Desires, and Desires is a good card in Sky Strikers. Just ask Joshua Schmidt. But I guess like people wouldn't run it because they're scared of banishing the one of Ray. But I guess the one of Rose. Imagine just playing one Ray in a Striker deck. But yeah, I guess, I mean, with 3 Desires now, I guess you just play 2 Rose so that you don't banish 2 Rose off, so that you don't banish 1 Rose off Desires. And then other than that, it's literally pot of greed. Like, it's great. You have so many, I mean, you don't really care about banishing 10 cards as long as you don't, again, as long as you don't banish both your Roses from your deck, you're good. And like, yeah, so Sky Striker got buffed by got buffed harder from the ban list than Snake Eyes did. I honestly, I do think Sky Striker got buffed more from Desires going from 1 to 3 than Snake Eyes did from Poplar going from 1 to 3. Like, especially because like it's way more likely that Sky Striker will run 3 Desires than most Snake Eyes builds will run 3 Poplar. In my opinion, I could be wrong on that, but yeah. Also, like, what was it is definitely not top level. No, Sky Striker is not in this tier, but I'll put it up here because Sky Striker. Also, Loki, it has a decent matchup against the top decks. Like, it's not great. Obviously, try not to play against the Clankers here. If they try not to play against a deck that literally puts a spell cancer. That's not good for your health. But other than that, like a Draco Tail, Sky Striker is very good against Draco Tail. Maybe one of the best decks against Draco Tail, actually, just because it's, and frankly, the Draco interruptions don't really affect you that often. They have one flame which you can dodge with your triple linkage that's searchable, or your triple like what's that card called? Forbidden Droplet. Like, they can both dodge flame, and then other than that, like, you don't really care about other stuff. Like Horn is whatever. Horn bounce my link, get my Ray back, make another link, whatever. Like a combination with like Horn and Sting trying to banish your Ray, like try to banish your Rose, which I guess that's another advantage of playing 2 Rose, is that even if one gets banished off Sting, you still have another one too, so to make the Draco Tail matchup even better. And like Yummy, it's 50-50, I guess. I mean, this is the deck that's pretty good going second, but you don't expect it to win going second against like Mitsu Yummy or like something. Against Vanquish K9, they don't have many spell negates, I feel like, right? Like it's, especially like as long as you're not playing the Crystron K9 against the Crystron K9 variant, your spells will resolve more often than not. And like, yeah, this deck is it's fine. It's not spectacular or anything. Like, obviously, it's a going first deck that doesn't have a strong going first end board, and like that's kind of weird. Droll being in the format kind of sucks for it. Because like if you get trolled going second with Sky Striker, like the game is basically just over. Like, there's nothing you can do, and that's like unfortunate. But it's not the only deck that happens to. But yeah, it's all right. Like the triple Desire Sky Striker is real. Expect to see it. I expect to see someone top with it next Duelist Cup at least. And now we're on to the other aforementioned the decks that I've been alluding to this entire time, which I probably should have covered earlier, which is the other Justice Hunter decks, along with Vanquish K9. So we have the Yummy variants and the Draco Tail variants. So let's cover the Yummy variants first. I'm gonna put these up here, and spoilers, I think Yummy is a overall a better deck right now than Vanquish K9. If anything, just because of like consistency is like a big part of it, because again, Yummy it runs anywhere from like 15, 16 plus starters depending on which variant you run, like you sometimes even more. So Yummy has again a mid 90% consistency, a mid 90s consistency rate, like almost a 10% higher consistency rate than Vanquish K9, and then probably an even better way, even better hand trap resilience, except against like Maxi or Full Loss. That's the thing that hurts you more. But yeah, to organize the variants, so well, let's talk about each variant. So Mitsu Yummy, you already know what Mitsurugi Yummy does. It's like puts up arguably the strongest board in the entire game, has tons of pushes. Unlike other Yummy variants, it has actual good engine for playing second going into boards. It's not going to be enough to play into full end boards, but against half boards, if you like Fool Lost your opponent or like just drop one hand trap and they can't end on everything, then you have a much better chance of playing into their end board with your Mitsurugi engine that's actually good playing into boards and actually threatening, compared to like, you know, running a bunch of Lollipos and cookies that lose the one Book of Moon or like one removal. Like that's kind of why I don't really believe in pure Yummy. So yeah, it's solid, puts up a strong end board, but the Yummy variant that has been basically taking over recently in like basically high rated and master rank is Sulfur Yummy. And I'm so glad I was right on this, because like last tier list I put Sofa Yummy as like the second best Mitsurugi, or it's like the second best Yummy variant behind Mitsurugi, and a lot of people were questioning that whether Sulfur Yummy was better than pure Yummy. And like after this month, if like the rated results and like just the play rate and like what everyone's using right now, if that doesn't support that Sofa Yummy is way better than pure Yummy, like I don't know what will. But like the question is not whether Sofa Yummy is better than pure Yummy. I think like without a question right now, Sofa Yummy is just straight up better than pure Yummy. The question should be whether Sofa Yummy is better than Mitsurugi Yummy. That should be the question. And I actually think it is, because the way people are building Sofa Yummy now, Sofa Yummy has the highest, in my opinion, the highest card quality with like the least amount of bricks. Okay, so like Mitsurugi cards are obviously high quality, but it also, depending on what kind of Mitsurugi packs you run, they also run a lot of bricks and undesirable cards and like high engine count. Silvercore Yummy can play the Silvercore cards. The Silvercore engine has 1 brick in it total, and like 7 good cards. I believe it's 7 good cards, 7 starters to 1 brick, which is a much better ratio of good cards to bricks compared to the Mitsurugi engine, and it also takes up less space. So Silvercore Yummy can also play way more hand traps than the Mitsurugi Yummy variant. Silvercore Yummy is much more closer to pure Yummy than Mitsurugi in the amount of hand traps they can run. And the best, arguably the best part about Silvercore Yummy is that it can play this card called Herald of the Orange Light, which is the single best hand trap in the game, because the Silvercore cards are fairy monsters, and you can play this card called Time Maiden, which is literally just a level 1 extender that special summons itself. But so you know, that's already, you know, half a full combo. That's already half Yummy combo, because you can just turn it into a Link 1 and then boom. Also, it's an extender and it's a fairy, so you have a high enough fairy count to justify Herald of the Orange Light. And Herald of the Orange Light in this format is insane. It's not only like the best hand trap, like it's one of the few hand traps where by itself it actually does significant damage. Like if your opponent summons like Cupsy Yummy, usually you need 2 to 3 hand traps to beat 1 normal summon Cupsy. But 1 Herald of the Orange Light just straight up beats Cupsy. It forces them to have Marshmallow. Otherwise, like they lose, they don't get the surprise search, they don't get the body, they can't link it off into Snatchy, and then like they literally need a specific 2 of in their deck to play through 1 Herald. Also, Herald turn 0 plays, it shuts down turn 0 plays. That's very important. Not that I mean, a huge advantage of playing Yummy in general, like outside of the Mitsurugi variant, is that Yummy does not trigger the K9 cards very easily. In fact, that's probably the one reason you would consider playing pure. The one is because pure, you can play pure in a way where you never trigger Izuna and you never trigger the K9 card. So Izuna is not a hand trap against pure. But I mean, Silvercore can do quite a lot without triggering Izuna. Also, it's because you have Herald, you can straight up have a hand trap that can like negate Izuna on your turn while you're comboing, but also it can hit Holisu, and that's like one thing. Like no matter how you much try to play around it, like Pure Yummy cannot play around the Holisu that well. Whereas if you just draw the 3 of Herald of Orange Light, which is a pretty decent chance, honestly, you can just shut down any tier 0 play. It also shuts down 5 mana too, so you don't just auto lose to a turn 0 5 mana as well. And yeah, also like the end board is better than Pure Yummy. The end board has Omni Negates. It's still plays decently well under Droll, plays better under Droll than Mitsurugi Yummy does. Plays decently into Fuwa, not as well as Pure Yummy, but I mean it's still you're generally fine. And yeah, I think Sofa Core Yummy has been the primary Yummy variant to feature in the top 10. In fact, at some point, like, for a long stretch of time, this Yummy Sofa Core was the #1 deck in Rated for a while. It might not be now. Like again, the placings in the top 10 in Rated always like switch around, but in general, like Sofa Core Yummy is the most represented Yummy variant in the highest ranks. So yeah. Anything else to mention? Anything else I need to say to glaze Sofa Core Yummy to get you guys to convince you guys that this is low-key maybe the best deck in this format right now? Yeah, the other Yummy variants, I would say Mitsu and the Pure Yummy and Fiendsive Yummy are probably they're probably a little lower. In fact, I'm willing to put these lower than Vanquish because these are, at the end of the day, these are mostly Yummy decks, and you know, how bad can a Yummy deck be? It's just that these are the worst variants. So if you already have two clearly superior Yummy variants to pick from, it's like, why would you choose these two? Like Pure Yummy is like so vulnerable to going, it's so bad going second. It has like low card quality because you just have to play the multiples of the bad Yummy monsters. And Fiendsmith is like very rough into Gulas, although it does have Caesar. I mean, Caesar is good, but I mean, Caesar is not like itself better than like the Mitsurugi end board, or even better than the Sofa Yummy end board, for example. But it does have more pushes, so I will respect Fiendsive Yummy and plays higher than Pure, because like I have no trust in Pure Yummy. Pure Yummy is like low-key, I want to put Pure Yummy in tier 2, although that might be a bit harsh, but like it's, yeah, I don't know why you would play Pure Yummy over Sofa at this point. And then the Draco Tail variants. So likewise, these Draco Tail variants. Now, I will say the one thing about Draco Tail is that Draco Tail probably, I mean, it definitely is the deck that got hurt the most by the introduction of Vanquish Soul K9, because this is probably the worst matchup for Draco Tail is Vanquish Soul K9, and likewise, yeah, Vanquish Soul K9 is probably like the best deck to play against Draco Tail, just because I mean, you just trigger K9 cards all the day long. Like you got Holisus, you like your hand trap lineup is like low-key kind of bad. That's another thing I forgot to mention. Yeah, the hand trap lineup. I love the hand trap lineup with Sofa Core Yummy. You have Imperms and Purge, which drawn together is great, and also Purge is like low-key the best hand trap, the best single. What's the way to call it? The best low impact, quote unquote low impact hand trap against Vanquish Soul K9, because it's a trap card. It doesn't trigger Izuna, and it just straight up blocks. It blocks a search, like it blocks Raisin, it blocks the field spell, it blocks what's called the Dr. Madlove, it blocks the K9s, the Noroys, it can even negate the fucking Izuna because it can even negate a Ripper because it's a trap card. Like like Purge is fantastic, and also Purge can be used on the Drigado traps on both turns. So yeah, that's a positive that that's another positive that the Mitsurugi variant of Yummy does not have. But yeah, back to the Dragon Tail variants. So with these three decks, like Yummy, Vanquish Soul K9, and Dragon Tail, it's kind of like a rock paper scissors type of matchup. Like against each of the other two decks, they have a good matchup and a bad matchup. Like Yummy has the good matchup versus Vanquish Soul K9, but it has a worse matchup versus the Dragon Tail, because the Dragon Tail interruptions are very hard for the Yummy to play into, and also 5 mana kind of hurts quite a lot. For Vanquish Soul K9, Dragon Tail is the good matchup, and like Yummy is the bad matchup. as mentioned with the Yummy cards, both the Draco cards, obviously, you know, Vanquish K9, like Izuna is just such a huge deal, and like not even just Izuna, even if it's just Lupus, special summoning Lupus, making it Typhon in defense mode, that's already insanely difficult to deal with because now like they can't use Arthalion very easily. Their traps can't interact with a defense position Typhon that can't be targeted. Like it's just like there are so many cards in the Vanquish matchup that just make Draco Tail like struggle so hard, and Draco Tail like can't even really play Imperm that well because like it's a it's not a monster, so they don't want to play Imperm, and Imperm is like the hand traps are the best hand traps versus Vanquish K9 just because they don't trigger Izuna, but like you gotta try other stuff like Veilers and the Beers, which are generally way less reliable versus Vanquish K9 as hand traps. And yeah, Draco Tail has Vanquish as the bad matchup, but it's very good against the Yummy matchup. And like honestly, last format Draco Tail was kind of better than Yummy, and it was like low-key taking over Yummy as the most played deck, despite Yummy being the newest deck, just because of how good the Yummy matchup was for Draco Tail. So yeah, it's like a kind of a rock paper scissors matchup, and like in my opinion, what's the ordering of these decks is based on like how they deal with their bad matchup out of these three, like which one has the least bad matchup. So like it's like Draco Tail versus Vanquish or Yummy versus Draco Tail, or Vanquish versus Yummy. Which one of these is the least bad? In my opinion, the deck among these three that has the least bad matchup is Yummy, because Yummy's bad matchup is quote unquote Draco Tail, but Yummy has the best non-engine to mitigate it because it runs like the most non-engine. It has tons of hand traps, especially with Sofa Yummy. It has Heralds, it has Imperms as purchase. Those are all excellent hand traps versus Draco Tail. It can run the best non-engine to combat its bad matchups, whereas that's not so much the case with Vanquish K9 or Draco Tail. As mentioned, the Draco Tail hand trap variety is kind of a weakness against Vanquish K9, and Vanquish K9 really struggles if it's Izuna. Well, it loses a lot of power if it's Izuna. Doesn't get much value like it does against the Yummy monsters, but Yummy has the good hand traps versus its bad matchup. I hope that I was kind of clear with that, but like, anyways, okay, back to Draco Tail for real. Okay, I've went on two separate tangents when trying to discuss Draco Tail, but yeah, best Draco Tail variants. So I'm gonna put Draco Tail as the bottom three of these. No, that doesn't sound. Putting Draco Tail at the bottom, that doesn't sound right. No, yeah, I'm putting the good Draco Tail variants above Vanquish K9. I think Vanquish K9 is probably, because of the consistency and the variants, Vanquish K9 I feel like is reliably not as good as the other two Justice Hunter decks right now in Master Duel. But yeah, the two better Draco Tail variants I think are Branded and just Pure. Maybe Pure is a bit questionable because pretty much the only Draco Tail variant that people are playing right now is Branded. Like 90% of the Draco Tail you'll play against right now is Branded Draco Tail. Fiendsmith is basically extinct, even though I think Fiendsmith is like it's okay, but like it just sees no play, and Magistus has fallen off quite a bit because it's the one Draco Tail variant that plays in the hand traps that the other Draco Tail variants don't. Like for example, Droll, mainly because the Draco Tail variants, every other Draco Tail variant starts with Draco Tail cards and bridges into its secondary engine. So if you get hit by a Fualos, if you get hit by a Droll, you just play normal Draco Tail, and like it's fine. But in the Magistus Draco Tail, often you will start with the Magistus engine over the Draco Tail engine, and then if you get hit by a hand trap such as Droll or Fualos, that hurts more because you haven't yet utilized your Draco Tail engine. So if you get Fuad on the Magistus engine, you'll have to give them yet another draw just to use your Draco Tail engine. And Troll, if you get trolled on your Magistus engine, then like that just makes. I mean, you can still like hard draw cards that still access your Draco Tail engine, but like it cuts off quite a bit of your Draco Tail engine if you get trolled before your first search, because Draco Tail can search once and be done with it. But if they get no searches at all for the Draco Tail engine, that's a bit awkward. So yeah, that's why these two variants are down here. But yeah, Pure and Branded. So Branded Draco Tail, it's playing some interesting tech right now. And by interesting, I mean it's playing fucking fuck ass Rainbow Magician, aka 5 Rainbow Magician. This card is, if you haven't seen this card before, then you're one of the innocent ones who hasn't been playing Master Duel like over 2 years ago when that was the last time this card was relevant. Basically, 5 Rainbow Magician. It is a floodgate. It basically, if your opponent, if you don't have any set cards, you're Mystic Mind. You can't activate monster effects, and you can't attack with your monsters. And Draco Tail always has set cards, because literally every single time it uses the Draco Tail effect, you set a card to your back row. So you will never have to worry about the drawback of having set cards. Meanwhile, if you're playing against other matchups, like say, for example, you're playing against Vanquish K9. Vanquish K9 does not run many spell traps at all, because they need to run monsters because of attributes. So there's a high chance that they have nothing to set, and then they're just floodgated out the game. But beyond that, the reason why this card is being played in Branded Draco Tail is because it is a light spellcaster. You know what that means? It means that you can Branded Fusion and Foolish and like essentially foolish 5 Rainbow Magician in order to fusion summon into Sanctifier. So once again, this is yet another Sanctifier classic floodgate. Try Sanctifier, try not to enable a floodgate challenge. Impossible. So this, and its effect is that if it's in the graveyard and you set a card to the field, you get to place it in a Pendulum Zone, and its Pendulum effect is live, and its Pendulum effect is the Mystic Mind effect. So basically, you can literally Verte or Branded Fusion, dump the 5 Rainbow Magician, use any Draco Tail effect to set a card, and then the 5 Rainbow Magician comes back, and then boom, floodgate, easy. So cool, right? And also, another reason this card is being played in Draco Tail, and this I believe, like, this is the way funnier version beyond just floodgating your opponent, but 5 Rainbow Magician is the funniest out the Liger Dancer I've ever seen. So if you're wondering how this interaction works, basically, if you can set up a 5 Rainbow Magician in your Pendulum Zone, even if your opponent has a Liger Dancer on the field, they can't use the Liger Dancer's effect to Regeki you. So for some reason, the Liger Dancer can still attack. I don't know how that ruling works, but they can't use their Regeki anymore. And obviously, they can't use any other effects because you're playing. You can pop their back. That's one thing, is that you have control over your opponent's back row. If your opponent tries to set a card in order to get out of the floodgate of 5 Rainbow, you can just use Gulamel, use Urgula, use fucking Fusion Summon into a Chaos Star Source Dragon. You can just pop whatever card they try to set, so that even if they try to set a card in order to get out of the floodgate of 5 Rainbow, you can still control and get and force them into it, because you can just pop their set cards. But basically, back to the Liger Dancer. So the Liger Dancer can't pop your monsters. Like, it can attack, but like, as long as you don't die, it's okay. And then it has the second part of his effect, where if you have 4 sets, all your monsters' attack gets doubled. And it's not hard to get 4 sets, because literally, again, you just use Draco Tail monster effects, and if you just hard draw any of your Draco Tail spell and traps, or like Branded Fusion, you can set them. And then when you get the 4 back row set plus the 5 Rainbow in one of your pen zones, all your monster attack gets doubled, and then you can attack over the Liger Dancer, because the Liger Dancer, again, cannot use its effect because they're under 5 Rainbow Magician. And then you attack over Liger Dancer, and you OTK the Lunatite player with your 5 Rainbow Magician boosted monsters. That's that is the, if someone has ever done that, please send me the replay. I need to see footage of that happening, because that sounds like that is like, imagine the Lunatite player's face if they get fucking destroyed by a 5 Rainbow Magician. But so that's a new development. 5 Rainbow Magician branded, and then pure Draco Tail is mainly because it can run hand traps, and like, you can run hand traps such as Mourner in order to try and combat like the Vanquish K9 matchup. Like, if you're tired of getting turn 0'd on, you can play triple Mourner, and then when they like Izuna you or they Holisu you at least have more ways to not get destroyed by the Holisu or the Izuna. So there's that. Like, there's no way you can stop them from triggering Izuna. Like, you will, as long as you're playing Draco Tail monsters, you will be triggering Izuna. Like, there's no way to avoid triggering K9 cards. But at least you have the hand trap. That's the one thing. You have more hand traps. But Brandon is definitely the way more popular version of Draco Tail. And Next we have Mitsurugi, and finally Mitsurugi has taken over Malice's role as the best impulse deck in the game. All it took was like 5 consecutive ban lists of hitting Malice non-stop in order for a new deck to take its in order for another deck to finally be better than it. So yeah, Mitsurugi is now the best impulse deck. So impulse, obviously, as you can tell from up here, there's not a lot of decks here that can actually play impulse. There's pretty much just the Shining Strike Orcus, which is why I like it so much, and you have like Pure Rocket and Fire King Snake Eyes. Not Fiend Snake Eyes or any of those variants, but like Fire King Snake. Like there's not many impulse decks, and impulse is still a very good card. It is still a notable niche that your deck can play impulse. And on top of that, Mitsurugi is also a deck that can play Shifter, so like that's more parallels with Malice, and like more replacing Malice's job in the meta. But yeah, so Mitsurugi is decent. It's it plays all right because of the existence of if they have a Vanquish Canine board, and like usually they're protected because of the field spell, but if you can get a Magatama search, you can Magatama pop their field spell, and then their monsters are no longer protected, and then you can like Murakuma their entire field away. So like there's something there for going second into that matchup. You do annoyingly trigger the Canine cards with your Mitsurugi cards, but you have so much gas with your Mitsurugi engine that generally you can play through it. And yeah, Mitsurugi variants have been having a lot of success. Although they're probably not the variants that you're thinking of, unless I guess you watch Decade. But the top Mitsurugi variants are not pure Mitsurugi. Okay, well they are quote unquote pure Mitsurugi in that they play multiple Mitsurugi ritual. Like they're not super hybrid variants. They are Mitsurugi variants. They are pure Mitsurugi variants playing a couple tech cards. Okay, one way, the popular way that Mitsurugi is being played in high rated right now is Mitsurugi FTK, which is essentially using Gimmick Public cards to FTK your opponent with the Mitsurugi cards, because it finally fulfills the role of playing Gimmick Public FTK, but instead of playing shitty Gimmick Public cards, you're actually playing good Mitsurugi cards alongside it. And that's scary, because that's the weakness of Gimmick Public FTK, because the weakness of Gimmick Public FTK before was that you had to play Gimmick Public cards, which those cards are ass, not gonna lie. But Mitsurugi cards are definitely not ass. And because they're a rank 8 enabler, you can bridge into the fucking Gimmick Public engine, and then you can make a Gimmick Public FTK while playing Mitsurugi. So yeah, that's fantastic. No, that's great. We got yet another classic Master Duel FTK as one of the top meta decks. And the other popular way people have been playing Mitsurugi is Mitsurugi Raizio. Quote unquote Raizio. There are actually 2 quotations around the word Raizio, because it is really just a pure Mitsurugi deck that plays 4 Raizio cards. Basically, it plays Bonfire, Ice, Sword, and X, and that's it. It's using the Raizio cards as just a small package, as an engine. There's no cross, there's no other Raizio bricks. They don't even run 3 Ice. Okay, like the most I've seen is people run 2 Ice, and that's only because to replace one of the Habakiris usually. And they care so little about the Raizio part of the deck that they still run Impulse, even though they play Raizio. Because at the end of the day, if you Impulse, you can still special summon the Raizio monsters from hand. You just don't get the search effects. But I mean, that's kind of what you're using. Then you're kind of just using the Raizio monsters as extenders and as additional starters too, if you're going first, because any Raizio monster is a rank 4, and any rank 4 is King of the Fatal Imps, which therefore is any Raizio monster is Habakiri combo. It is Mitsurugi combo. It is Habakiri. So it is more consistency too. When one of the issues with pure Mitsurugi is sometimes consistency, but if you just play fucking Raizio cards as literally just searchers for Habakiri, then that works. Also, X is like a really good card. Now X is a fantastic card for going second, because Valon released this pack. So along with Aggregator, you have 2 options to send with X. You can send either Aggregator to negate a face-up card, or you can send Valon to pop a face-down card. So your X Raizio is super versatile. And even if you're under Impulse, you can still use X to send Aggregator to negate a card, and then you still get the level 4 body at the very least. But if you're not under Impulse, and like X is crazy, it gets you a rank 4. It gets you another body, plus you can do whatever. X is a crazy card. You're using X as essentially a board breaker almost a lot of the time. And also, you know, the classic Mitsurugi end board where you're basically making a rank 4 to search Nib. In this case, instead of searching Nibiru, you're searching a Raizio detonator. Because you're using your rank 4s to make a dual drive in order to get the Raizio names in order to end with a detonator on the field. And like this, it's just my personal opinion. But you know, I think Raizio Detonator is kind of a better end board piece than Nibiru. Like low key, Detonator is a better card than Nibiru. That might just be me. I don't know, but yeah, quote unquote Rise. Like it feels like a meme to even call this a Raizio deck, because it's you run like as many copies of like bricks as you do. Right, you run more Mitsurugi bricks than you run Raizio starters, which is like funny, but like, yeah. So those are the two most successful variants of Mitsurugi. Fucking Mitsurugi Game Republic FTK and Mitsurugi double quote Raizio, and yeah. So now moving on to more decks, some older decks. Aliber, as yeah, this is I put Branded and Rogue last time, and yeah, frankly, I've not even seen any Branded. Like, you know, Branded is in a bad spot when like you don't even run into Branded on ladder. I did not play against a single Branded Despia this entire month, and like that is like shocking because this deck is it's a fan favorite. It's so popular, but like not even player is playing Branded Despia anymore. Like that's how rough it is. Like if you 99% of the time you see Branded Fusion, it's for fucking Draco Tail. It is nothing to do with Branded anymore. And yeah, it is quite rough. This meta is rough. Like this deck is not, man. It does not run enough non-engine to help it go second. And it's frankly it's not even that great going first anymore because like it's people run like these decks up here. They either run so many hand traps or like you trigger Izuna like crazy. Like you 5 mana into Secretarion, low-key kind of hurts. I mean, it's not the end of the world, obviously, but like I can't even explain how bad the matchup is because I just haven't seen this deck at all because like it's just not there. I don't know what happened to it. Like it's along with Tier and Branded. Like these are two of the most popular decks in Master Duel history. And the fact that these are barely seeing any play is like a testament, like how much they struggle. Especially like when you're playing Fiends or when you're playing Gem Knight Tier. I always said like, what is the point of playing Tier with the Gem Knight cards when the Gem Knight Fiends without the Tier cards? It's just more consistent, has more room for non-engine, has better non-engine. Like the Tier cards are kind of just holding the deck back. It feels like you're trying to get lucky and mill to maybe add the roll callers and shufflers on your end board, instead of just having a consistent deck with better non-engine to help it go second better. Like yeah, maybe when we get the new brand support in Master Duel eventually, this will, you know, I'll probably like close to the next pack or like within the next few months we should get new branded support. So like this deck should like definitely move out of Rogue once we get that. But like for now it's kind of meh. We have the other Gem Knight builds, which is Gem Knight Fiendsmith, which here's the thing about Gem Knight Fiendsmith. Gem Knight Fiendsmith is always like this deck is always there here for some reason. Like it is, even when barely anyone is playing it, like you still see a couple of Gem Knight Fiendsmith decks move up into the top 10 of rated randomly, even though you know like there's hardly anyone playing this deck because it's still a solid deck and it has like the same principles with Yummy, with Sulfur Core Yummy, in that it has excellent non-engine. It has the Heralds, and Heralds are obviously cracked. And speaking of cracked, Brilliant Fusion is still one of the strongest cards in the game still to this day. I would say Brilliant Fusion is individually stronger than any single card played in any of these decks, except maybe with the exception of like Holly Sue. But like Holly Sue is not a single card; it requires other cards to work. Whereas Brilliant Fusion, you just activate it by itself, and you probably win that game. And yeah, there's even like there's a higher likelihood, the highest likelihood of like Brilliant Fusion resolving compared to like any previous format is because this is the lowest play rate that Malice has had and like Malice was like the #1 impulse decks, and now impulse is basically just seen in like Mitsurugi decks, and again for some fringe other decks like Orcus and some Snake Eyes variants, not even all Snake Eyes variants. It's like the chance of you resolving your Brilliant Fusion is like way higher now than it was before. The deck's like it's super consistent. One of the most consistent decks in the game. You know, unlike the K9 variants like Vanquish or K9, you know, any Axis of Fiendsmith engine is full combo, and yeah, it's just a solid deck. Then we have like the other Gem Knight build, which is the blind second Gem Knight build, and I guess we'll talk about Tenpai here too, just blind second next to general. I don't know if the introduction of Vanquish K9 has made blinding second better or worse, to be honest, because like Vanquish K9, it doesn't put up any like real omni negates or like you know, a lot of negates in general. So like you board breakers, you can use board breakers against it, but the deck is also really resilient. It has resources in hand, and like a lot of interruptions it has is from hand. So like even if you do use board breakers on them, it's not like that gets rid of all of their interruption. And they even have like built-in resilience to destruction with the field spell on its like Vanquish monsters. And another thing is that it makes the choice of board breakers weird, because you know, evenly matched is technically probably the best one against Vanquish K9, but I mean, you're not going to play evenly matched in blind second decks, right? Like, especially you're not going to play evenly matched in Gem Knights or Tenpai, because that defeats the whole point of the deck. Like, you're trying to OTK them, so like you can't use the best board breaker against that deck, because that is literally goes against the entire reason you're playing the deck in the first place, which is trying to OTK your opponent. So like that's kind of out of the question. And then like Red Reboot is significantly worse now, because Draco Tail is less part of the meta, because there's another deck where I mean, you can hit the Vanquish Soul's trap, you can hit the Snow Devil, but it's not like hitting the Snow Devil is gonna win you the game versus Vanquish Soul K9. And like it's just overall kind of mediocre against Yummy, like mediocre to terrible versus Yummy. And I guess that's one good thing that Vanquish Soul K9 has done for Draco Tail. Even though like the matchup is obviously not great for Draco Tail, the introduction of Vanquish Soul K9 has decreased the play rate of Red Reboot even further, to the point where I can't really think of many decks that actually even play Red Reboot anymore. Like, I guess you can maybe see it in some of the Mitsurugi FTK decks, because you know, they're FTK decks, so like they're literally just using Red Reboot more so as anti-Dominus Purge, anti-Imperm more than anything than like an actual board breaker. But like most other than that, I have seen most other decks just simply drop Red Reboot, which is very good for Draco Tail, because that was one of the best cards versus Draco Tail, along with Retaliating Sea, which I mean, imagine playing Retaliating Sea now. But yeah, because Red Reboot is bad, it also makes a board breaker lineup for blind second decks a little weirder, because it's like you don't really want to run Red Reboot as your board breaker, but then what are you going to replace it with, right? Like I don't know. Also, like Tenpai, I'm speaking strictly about like the hand trap version of Tenpai. I don't think Striker Tenpai is viable. Like, basically anytime Droll sees a lot of play, and Droll is seeing a lot of play right now because people are playing it for Vanquish K9, I just don't think you can play Striker Tenpai, because anytime you get Drolled going second playing Striker Tenpai, you automatically lose the game. Like, just like a quarter of your games, you're just gonna lose automatically because your opponent drew Droll. And like, there's nothing you can do about it. Even if you break their whole board, like, what are you gonna do? You probably can't OTK them from that position. So like, it's kind of, yeah. Strictly speaking, we're just talking about the hand trap version of Tenpai, and then like Gem Knights. So I think that Gem Knights is the better blind second version, is the better blind second deck over Tenpai. I think it has been pretty much since it came into Master Duel, because unlike Tenpai, Gem Knights does not lose to a single hand trap. Gem Knight also does not lose to Droll by itself, whereas Tenpai, if you were playing this board breaker variant of Tenpai, it definitely does. And yeah, it has better pushes into board, so that you don't have to fully break a board. You know, it has you can play with negates, like a hollow core, to try and play into board better. Like the Tenpai, you can't really play that well into boards. That's why it has to like basically stop your opponent from playing completely. It's just like why it's like just kind of fallen out of favor, because it's like almost impossible to do that right now, because both Draco Tail and Vanquish Soul hold key interruptions in hand on top of actually playing actual hand traps. So it just, even if you end up breaking their entire board of Tenpai, you still often will not be able to get past their last like disruption in hand. So it's like I think Tenpai, the days of Tenpai are like quite gone. If you were to play a blind second deck, I would consider, I think Gem Knight's better. And that's also if you're playing a Striker deck, playing actual Sky Striker is better than playing Striker Tenpai because actual Sky Striker can go first, and going first is much easier than going second. No matter who you ask, even a deck that doesn't even put up like the strongest end board in the game with Striker, even this deck would prefer going first over going second. So like it's still, yeah, that's. I'll put blind second. Gem Knights here tentatively. It might be this could be argued anywhere from like right next to Tenpai to like I guess next to Striker. Like this is the most flexible spot because quite frankly I haven't really seen many blind second decks at all, to be honest. Like that's the one thing of this format is that blind second decks have kind of just disappeared from the format. It feels like I haven't really seen. I didn't really queue that many. Usually you would queue at least against some Tenpai just because it's fucking Tenpai and it's like people are trying to cheese people going second. But like even then it's like that doesn't really happen that much anymore in this format. So like it's yeah. Low key though, next we have a Lunar Knight, and low key Lunar Knight is like kind of better as a better going second deck than the actual going second decks because Lunar Knight has fucking access to heavy poly and access to thrust to search heavy poly. So heavy poly is like the best going second card in the entire game, and like if you don't have a negate for it, you're getting wrecked. So yeah, that's one positive of Lunar Knight. And how Lunar Knight, it was very good. Pretty much last format was the best Lunar Knight has ever been because the top two decks were Yummy and Draco Tail, and neither of those decks have really clean outs of Lunar Knight at all. In fact, if you played properly, they could not even out your single Liger Dancer. So like that was pretty huge. Although admittedly now Draco Tail is playing that 5 rainbow shit, which is like a very convoluted but viable out of Liger Dancer now. But yeah, with the existence of Vanquish Soul K9, it's a deck that's still, it's not like Vanquish Soul K9 is good at outing Liger Dancer really, because like I mean you would have to go through some convoluted plays using the rank 4 Vanquish Soul Exceeds Rocks, which most Vanquish Soul K9 decks don't even play that rank 4, or you have to go into Arc Rebellion Dragon, which is like 3 level 5s, which like at that point if you see your opponent put 3 level 5 monsters on the field, you just Regeki them with Liger Dancer, and then you don't have to worry about Arc Rebellion Exceeds Dragon. So like it's still like not really easy to out Liger Dancer with Vanquish Soul K9 as compared to Malice at one point, but Vanquish Soul K9 does have better interaction, better turn 0 interaction, or quote-unquote better hand traps versus Liger Dancer because of the K9 cards and the Poly Suit, since its actual hand traps are actual removal now, and they're not just like low impact hand traps. So like it's harder to play through and actually end on like your full Lunar Light end board through actual removal like Holly Sue and Izuna compared to like other hand traps like classic hand traps like Infirm and stuff like that. So I'll say that this deck is still really good. It's definitely better, still decent. It's not as good as it was last format because I guess there's like more impactful hand traps in the format now, but still Lunar Light is still something to watch out for. You better have a plan versus Lunar Light. I mean your plan can be just a hand trap to death too. If you play enough hand traps, that can be your plan to like what Yummy's basically doing is just trying to play enough hand traps to where you don't end on Liger consistently enough. But then you got to worry about the heavy poly. You also like if heavy poly ever resolves going second, like you are still kind of cooked. So like you got to be cognizant of that. But yeah, Lunar Light still solid. Loki, what kind of maybe it's better than K9 Crystron. I could be argued either way, to be honest. Yeah, we'll put this here for now. Stun is look, Stun got 3 desires back. Okay, so the only other deck that played desires in the past 2 years besides Sky Striker, again, it was basically Stun. So I'll give it that, but still, Stun is versus Vanquish Soul K9 is like the worst matchup in the world for Stun. It is so bad. Not to mention, like we already went over in previous like months how barrier statues were terrible because barrier statues, they don't work against like half the format. Light barrier statue does not work against like no matter which one you pick, right? Like light barrier statue does not work against Yummy, Water does not work against Draco Tail. Earth Barrier Statue does not work against Draco Tail. It was just the only thing you had was like Fire Barrier Statue to block most of the meta. But now Fire doesn't work now because of fucking Vanquish Soul. So like, dog, like and like, I swear, Stun versus Vanquish Soul is like a 20-80 matchup. And like the 20% it loses is not because Stun does anything versus Vanquish Soul. The 20% is just because the Vanquish Soul player bricked. That's when you beat Vanquish Soul as Stun. Because if the Vanquish Soul player has anything at all, like there's no way you as a Stun player are somehow beating Vanquish Soul. Like I just can't see it. So like yeah, we'll put it down here. Labyrinth also like, yeah, I think Labyrinth got a bit worse this format. Like how sad is it that you're playing a trap deck and the very few monsters that you choose to play trigger fucking Izuna? Like if you play Furnitures, you know that's a free Izuna trigger. If you only play Lady Labyrinth, that still triggers Izuna. Like that's kind of sad. And then they can put up like a fucking untargetable Tyrus, undestructible Tyrus that can threaten Zeus, and then of course your Lady Labyrinth is summoned in defense position because it has to be summoned in defense positions. Then you're like struggling to like not get Zeus as well by the tier. Like it's just it's rough. And like Vanquish Soul is already a deck that is a lot better against back row and a lot better against you know, stun decks and back row decks. So not to say that Labyrinth always plays like a stun deck, but I feel like if you want to play Labyrinth successfully at all, you gotta, you know, lean in to the floodgates, because you're definitely not beating Vanquish Soul K9 with just engine on versus engine. That's not really gonna work most likely. Yeah, it's I don't have faith in Labyrinth. I actually like straight up, dude, I also have not seen Labyrinth. Here's the thing, like Labyrinth is also a popular deck. Like these three decks down here in Rogue, here Brandon, as I mentioned, are popular. Labyrinth has a very dedicated fan base, so like it has a very dedicated players, and I also have not queued into Labyrinth at all. So like that just shows you the state of Labyrinth in this form, in this meta as well. That fucking Voices Voice. I will continue to put Voices Voice here just until they allow Voices Voice to be legal for an event, because god, this deck is so mid. Like this is, you see this, I'm playing Voices Voice Mitsurugi here. This is like the one interaction that I guess maybe keeps Voices Voice relevant. Maybe because they can use Mitsurugi cards, and like Diviner then becomes a one card like super combo, because you can Diviner send not send Trias anymore, you send Herald to add Habakir, and Habakir tributes the Diviner, and then the Diviner summons the low. Then you get Voices Engine plus Mitsurugi Engine. But like, I mean, that begs the question, what do you do when you don't open Diviner? You're doing midless mid stuff with less non-engine, because you spend room on the Mitsurugi cards, which like honestly it feels like you're playing a Mitsurugi deck, but you're trying to shoehorn in a huge secondary engine instead of actually playing good non-engine. It also prevents you from playing impulse. Like, it's why I'm not a fan of like combining every deck with Mitsurugi, because it's like, what is the advantage of playing this deck what is the advantage of playing this deck over just playing actual Mitsurugi itself? Because it feels like the actual cards you're playing, the secondary engine or the main engine, whatever you want to call it, of Voices Voice, is holding back the Mitsurugi cards. So, yeah, it's we'll put it here. I also these I've seen like a few Dark Magician, I've seen a few Rockets. I have not seen any of these decks down here very frequently at all on the ladder. So it just goes to show like it's probably not the format for them. And also the fact that yeah, the Saravis, that the power of Voices Voice is always in like how good Saravis is in the format, and Saravis is so bad into K9 and Vanquish Soul, because like the K9 cards, annoyingly enough, like Lupus is not, you can't negate the loop, or actually I should say you can play around the Saravis with Lupus, because you can if you just straight up use Lupus effects to exceed summon, I think you can still negate it with Saravis. But if you just, because it's a quick effect, you can use Lupus's effect to exceed summon as Chainlink 2 during your opponent's turn. That way, they won't be able to negate the summon with Saravis, because it misses the timing to fucking negate the summon, because it was summon that Chainlink, the XE summon was happening during Chainlink 2. So it's like that. And then the Suckmaster 3000 does not target, like Nash Knight is so bad for Voices Voice, because it completely outs the Voices Voice board, because you know, it dismantles Skull Guardian, because Skull Guardian, you know, it can be targeted, and if it gets removed from the field, you get to special summon a second one. But if you just use a Suckmaster 3000 and just suck up the Skull Guardian, one, you know, that doesn't target, so it goes around the barrier protection, and then it also doesn't cause it to leave the field. It just sucks it up, so then it doesn't even trigger the prayers to summon another one. Like it's actually like really fucking bad. And of course you're triggering K9. Of course you're playing into K9 most of the time because Saphira and Low both trigger the K9. Like it's just. I kind of want to push. I almost want to drop this complete. Like this is that. The more I'm talking about this, like I didn't realize how bad this matchup was in theory. Just because this matchup is not something that really happens anymore because nobody plays voice. But holy crap, that sounds terrible. Speaking of sounding terrible, yeah, Centurion. This is, boy, this is, wow. That's yeah, that's bad against every top deck up here. It's like bad against all of this stuff. man, it's. Centurion seen better days. I don't know why they restricted this shit during the dice rally. It's not like Centurion. It's like anywhere near the most of your concerns. Like Jesus Christ. Why I don't know. Yeah. It's also like you know, it has the Dragon Link or the Rocket problem of Bistio's not being good at all. So like you can't play the Bistio version. And not that I'm not even sure you want to play Bistio version. I don't, because like low-key Centurion, there's one thing you can do is that you can avoid triggering K9 cards if you just play the Centurion cards and you don't use Gargoyle. But the moment you add in a secondary engine, you play into K9. So like, I'm not even sure if that's worth it. At the same time, imagine playing pure Centurion in 2026. That deck was low-key not playable even before. But like trying to play pure without a secondary engine, I don't know about that either. And next we have Blue Eyes. So Blue Eyes, I'm putting Blue Eyes like a tier above the Dark Magician. So like the thing is with Blue Eyes is that Blue Eyes doesn't have like the weakness to a single hand trap that, you know, Dark Magician has, like it does against Droll, for example. Like Blue Eyes is like how the average rogue deck or the average tier 3 or lower deck should try to handle these top decks, and that's by running a shit ton of hand traps. And that's what Blue Eyes does. You know, it can't go second into these boards at all, but at least it plays 18 plus hand traps, and it has a good selection of hand traps too, because it has access to Purge. And Purge is like, that alone, I think that makes me put it above stuff like Life Twin, which is another deck that's plays a ton of hand traps to, you know, combat the top tier decks. But unlike Life Twins, Blue Eyes is not weak to Fuwa Loss. Like Life Twins is good against every hand trap except for Fuwa Loss and Maxi. Whereas Blue Eyes is good against every hand trap, even like especially Fuwa Loss. Like Fuwa Lossing a Blue Eyes deck is like but at best it's an upstart goblin most of the time. So yeah, and then like obviously Purge is like low-key the best hand trap versus Vanquish K9, and like good against Draco Tail on both players' turns. And like it's like, I guess it's kind of mediocre versus Yummy, but like I mean you can't win them all. That you have like 15 other hand traps to throw out Yummy that's not Purge. So yeah, it's just solid. It's boring. I know it's like it's not interesting. Like you're not making Magia stuff like that stuff is like kind of cope. You're not even making double Crimson, right? Like or double Spear Dragon, because that plays into hand traps, and like you can completely play around the K9 cards using Blue Eyes, but just by like just not doing the Crimson Dragon shit. So like in my opinion, I would rather do that, because like the payoff is like not worth it in order to make an Izuna alive. Like I would rather just not go against an Izuna at all and just maybe at best like end on Spirit Pass. But I guess it's also okay, because if you make a Spirit Dragon, then you also have a negate for the Lupus, but then you have to negate the Lupus on their turn as well. So it's like kind of just trading an interruption for like their Lupus. It's kind of weird, but it's all right. Like this is it's solid. It's not great. It's not terrible. Like you can definitely climb with Blue Eyes. It's gonna be like one of the least interesting climbs you can have with any of these decks, because it's literally just hand trap simulator against your opponent, and then like, you know, hopefully outgrinding them over the course of like a couple turns with your Tyrant Dragons resetting your Purges and resetting your Majesties and stuff like that. You're probably not going into like the Crimson Dragons. Even if you play the Crimson Dragon stuff, you're probably not going into that often. But yeah. Next is Man. So Man has been seeing a shit ton of play. Like it's been seeing a lot of play. More play than I think it deserves, but I mean it is a solid deck. I think it is the best. It is the best Primite deck, you know, out of the its competition. Like all three of these anime decks, Odeon, Blue Eyes, and you know, Dark Magician are like the main Primite decks. And I think this is by far the best one because this is the one that, number one, Odeon does not trigger K9 cards unless you use the fucking the level 10 from hand to search a man, which is why I recommend. I've seen most Odeon decks like just drop that completely or just run the one-off as a secondary search target, but like you kind of don't want to activate that card because like your deck is completely does not play into K9 otherwise, so like why would you want to do it when that card's not even that necessary? And yeah, this deck going first is crazy because it doesn't care about most hand traps. Same in a similar manner to Blue Eyes. Like it just sets its Omni Negates and it has like 3 Omni Negates. So it's like a Dark Magician end board where Dark Magician end board also has like 3 Omni Negates, except Dark Magician can be hand trapped, whereas Odeon cannot really be hand trapped. Like even if, no matter what hand traps you throw at it, it'll still end on at least like 2 to 3 Omni Negates still. Yeah, and then if it opens the Primate engine, that's like even more so. And then it has a very good hand trap lineup against Vanquish K9 because Odeon plays the most trap hand traps. I think it plays like it maxes out on them. It plays Songs of the Dominator. It plays Purge, plays Imperm, and most also play Impulse. So between those 4, that's 12 hand traps you have that do not trigger easy enough. And we've already talked about, you know, Vanquish Soul can open mediocre to average, and then it be you know, actually be stopped by lower impact hand traps, or you know, just yeah, stuff like that. And by playing all these trap hand traps, you cut them off of an additional extender with their Izuna, because the problem with like stuff like Ash is like obviously Ash does hit a lot of choke points in Vanquish K9, but it also makes Izuna another extender, so it's kind of like a wash in that sense. But yeah, Odeon can oftentimes just I think Odeon has the highest chance of just ending Vanquish K9 turns with just actual hand traps. This is because of all the hand traps that it runs. And yeah, that being said, it's not super great going second against other decks, to be honest. Its hand traps is not so reliable against Yummy all the time, and also this deck's going second capability is pretty trash because you're literally normal summoning a 1k guy as you're going second place, so it's not really good if they manage to end on any kind of board. So like it's still kind of meh going second, except against Vanquish K9 because of the aforementioned hand trap lineup. So yeah, I think this deck is low-key kind of got a bit better because of the existence of Vanquish K9. So yeah, I'll put it up here. It's like a solid tier 2 deck. It's definitely, I haven't ran into a lot of Odeon, but I know lots of people have been playing into Odeon because Odeon is like a pretty decent meta pick this format. And then it's Malice. You know, the deck that finally fell off, but by falling off, it just meant it is a solid tier 2 deck now instead of like a clear tier 1 deck. It's still pretty Malice is Malice. It still has the best along with Mitsurugi, Malice has like the best non-engine lineup because it can play Impulse plus Shifter if it wants to. I'm not sure, like, the thing about Shifter decks is that it depends on how much of Vanquish K9 you expect to see, because obviously if you think Vanquish K9 is still going to be the most played deck, it doesn't really make sense to play Shifter because that's like the one matchup where you don't want Shifter against, and it's going to be the most played deck. But like, it's Shifter's cracked against everything else, so you know there's that. And yeah, it's Malice. If the deck gets to play, it's still unsolvable. The end board is still the exact same. It is weaker into turn 0 plays. That's like the biggest thing, because before I noticed, like when it was still had like 3 Rapid and 3 Allure, the Draco Tail matchup, like Malice farmed Draco Tail because that was like almost like that was like the easiest matchup for Malice. But now that it has less Malice names and like less Allure, it has less extenders, so it depends more on the normal summon. And when you depend more on the normal summon, you get cooked by Femena a lot harder, and you get also cooked by Holly Sue a lot harder, and you also get you also end up playing into Izuna because all your monsters are extenders that are effects to special summon from hand. So like that can be annoying as well. So it is noticeably weaker playing into Disruption now. It still beats normal hand traps pretty convincingly. Like with Ash, Purge, Impulse, even all that stuff, like this is like it's still pretty decent playing against those. Fuwa it's whatever. Maxi went to 1, so you know that's a good thing for it. Droll, this deck does play into Droll a lot harder now because it plays more Adagnister cards. So obviously Adagnister cards are weaker into Droll, but still, you can still do a lot under Droll, and you can self-Droll yourself too. Although I'm not even sure it's even worth it half the time, because I would honestly maybe have Droll for my opponent's turn over having it for my turn, or over self-Drolling. But yeah, it's Malice. Nothing much more to say that hasn't already been said about Malice over the past like 7 months that this card's been in the game, or that this deck's been in the game. And yeah, those are all decks I'm carding for now. Let me see if there's any like weird adjustments I want to make. Let's looking at this from a glance. If anything looks super out of place. Yeah, you know what? We'll put these yummy variants at these like these yummy variants and these Draco variants that don't see much play. Like we'll put them at least at the bottom of tier 1 or at the top of tier 2. So like it will either like these are the top decks. So like we have Sofa Core Yummy, Mitsu Yummy, Granite Draco Tail, Pure Draco Tail. I don't see much Pure Draco Tail, to be honest. Here, let me. All right, so solidly for sure, I'm gonna put these in tier 1. Sofa Yummy, Mitsu Yummy, Granite Draco Tail, Vanquish K9, Mitsurugi Raizio, and other Mitsurugi like more pure Mitsurugi variants, including the Mitsurugi FTK, and then like Pure Draco Tail. And then these are like the lower level or the worst variants of Yummy and Draco Tail. So we got Fiendsmith Pure, and then like Fiendsmith and Magistus. So these can either stay here at the bottom of tier 1, or we can move these to like the top, to like the next tier, like the top of tier 2, because either way, like however you want to look at it, either like that or like this, right? Whichever one looks better. I guess this looks a bit better, so yeah, we'll keep it like this for now tentatively. Again, it's gonna change depending on what the next pack is. The next pack can either do absolutely nothing and this tier list will look exactly the same, or depending on what cards release, it might actually like change things completely, because there's a lot of filler cards we haven't gotten yet, but there's also some high impact cards that we also have yet to receive in Master Duel. And of course, this doesn't include every deck. I know there's a lot of Yummy and Draco Tail variants here, so if there's a deck that I didn't include in here that you want to discuss about in the comments, just let me know. That's what we have the comments for. But yeah, thank you for watching this super long the monthly super long yap session by me.